So welcome to the third video on R programming for data analysis, R programming for beginners. In this video we will be learning about vectors. So basically how I understand vector is, it is an array of numbers which are arranged horizontally in a bookshelf like fashion. And in R the numbering of vectors is done from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in that way. In other programming language, the first number will be numbered as 0 and then 1, 2, 3 and so on. But in R, the numbering starts from 1. So now let's see an example. Let us create a vector with name my first vector, and we'll put in the value 3, 2, 4, 5, 67, 29. Now what we need to do is we need to assign these 6 variables into the vector my first vector, and for that we are going to use the function c, and just c. As you can see in the environment, we get our vector my first vector, and this indicates that the vector is numeric, and 1 colon 6 indicates that the vector has got 6 elements. Now it's written that the vector is numeric, so let's check the type of vector. For that we'll write is numeric and we'll give my first vector. It says true, which means it is a numeric. So let us also check if it is an integer. And it says false, which means this vector, my first vector, is not an integer. So is it a double? Yes, it is a double vector. Now let us create a integer vector, and let us assign a name a to it. We'll give the function c, and we'll open the brackets, and inside the brackets we'll assign integers to the vector a. Now we can also check whether or not the vector a is numeric. For that we'll again use the isNumeric function. It says true, which means the vector a is numeric. Now let us check if it is an integer. True, yes, it is an integer, and it's definitely not a double. Yes, it's not a double. So let us create some character vectors. Let us assign the value b, and we'll create some character vectors. Now while creating the character vectors, you need to put in mind that the characters are always written inside the quotation marks. Now let us check whether this vector we created is character or not. Yes, indeed, it is a character vector. Now let us see what will be the type of the vector if we include both characters and numeric values inside the same vector. For that, let us assign the value c, and we'll write some characters. Then we will give some numeric vectors. Now in the environment, you can see R identified this vector c, which includes character as well as numeric values as character. So what will happen when we print the vector C? Then we'll see that the numeric values that we inserted in vector C were also read as character elements. That is because a vector cannot include two different types of elements, which means if a vector is character, then it will include all the character elements, and if a vector is numeric, then it will not contain any character elements. So now let us see what other functions we can use to create vectors. We can use the seq function, which stands for sequence, and we can also use rep functions, that stands for replicate. So let us see how we can use both of these functions. The function seq creates an array of numbers inside a vector. So let us suppose we want an array of numbers from 1 to 15. So what we'll do is we'll write the seq function, and inside the brackets we'll write 1 comma 15. And if we run this command, we can see seq 1 comma 15 actually represents the numbers from 1 to 15. So let us now assign a variable to this vector. Let us suppose it to be d, and in this way we can use the seq function to create a vector that contains the elements from the numbers 1 to 15. Now let us see the use of rep function. Suppose we've got a vector A with the elements 2, 3, 4. Now what we want to do is we want to create a next vector, that is E, which contains the elements of vector A but replicated 3 times. So for that, what we'll do is we'll write the rep function, and then we'll write A and comma, and we want it replicated 3 times. So what happens when we print the vector E is we get the 3 times replication of vector A. Now there is a little more secret to the sequence function. What is that is, we can simply use the colon symbol to indicate the array of numbers from 1 to certain number. For example, in vector D we assigned the sequence of numbers from 1 to 15, and without using the seq function we can simply place in a colon between 1 and 15 to indicate the array of 1 to 15 numbers. And as you can see, the result of this 1 colon 15 and the result of this seq 1 comma 15 is the same. So what is there more to this function seq that is not provided by this operation 1 colon 15? Now what we can do is we can also use the seq function to get the numbers from 1 comma 15. But suppose we want those numbers to be within the interval of 3. So for that, what we'll do is we'll again give a command type 3, and if we run this command, then we'll get the array of numbers between 1 to 15 within the interval of 3. For example, 1, then after 3 digits we'll get 4, and then 7, 10 and 13. Now what does these numbers mean that keeps on appearing on the console? Now let us suppose we want to replicate the number 3 1,000 times. In this case also we'll get numbers inside the square brackets in the console. Now what does they mean is, this number 1 within the square brackets means the first letter of this line, that is 3, is the first element, and this number 20 within the square brackets of the second line means the first element of this line is the 20th element in the array. And similarly, here in the last line, this first element 3 is the 989th element in this array of 1003s. Now this much is for today's tutorial, and after watching this tutorial, what I suggest you to do is to practice yourself the different vectors that you can create using the seq and the rep function, and also using the combine function, and I'll see you in the next video.